Well, let's go to this harrowing story now. And 13 years after a brutal gang rape, Andy Kawa is demanding justice and a date for her damages claim against police. And she's taken the fight to the doors of President Cyril Ramaphosa and Justice Minister Ronald Lamola, as well as Chief Justice Raymond Zondo, demanding a quicker response when these instruments are dealing with gender-based violence cases. So let's bring Andy into the conversation straight away. Andy, good morning to you, and thank you so much for being with us and for your time. I know that over the last few years you've been quite comfortable talking, well, comfortable, relatively speaking, talking about the harrowing experience that you had. And I think it's important for our viewers who may not understand why you're so angry now and taking this fight to the highest officers in the land, based on just what happened to you and just how tragic it was and how it radically changed the trajectory of your life. I wonder if you wouldn't mind just sharing a bit of what happened with our viewers.
Good morning, Iman. 13 years ago, I was abducted for 15 hours, gang raped by over 4 men. The case was not properly investigated. There were no convictions. And I took the Minister of Police to court because I believed that the issue was not just about my case, but about the many millions of victims of gender-based violence who report cases that are not properly investigated and they never get closure and justice.
So there were some important developments, Andy, that flowed from that. We'll talk about the personal price that you've had to pay over these last years in just a moment. But I want to go to the courts. And there was an important ruling in the Eastern Cape High Court which found that the police's behavior, their negligence, caused you severe harm. There was the appeal by the police to the Supreme Court of Appeal. And then finally, how this all kind of ended was the Constitutional Court agreeing with that earlier High Court decision that police had basically failed to conduct a proper investigation. So not only do you go through, and as many rape survivors have gone through as well, the personal healing, the trauma that you're going through, you also have to fight a very public fight and sometimes a very lonely fight in the courts. Just again, share with us some of the highlights that inform why you've now taken this fight to the highest office in the land.
I think, Iman, there's so much that a person can take until they reach their limitations and capacity to court. The victory happened in 2018, and 6 years later at the Eastern Cape High Court. 6 years later, the trial has still not been, the damages have still not been allocated and given. I had to go to the SCA, which is a harrowing and continuation of traumatization, where I lost the case, and went to the Constitutional Court, where I won the case where the judgment of the Eastern Cape was upheld, and won the case that now says that victims of gender-based and victims of crime can appeal to the minister and put a case against the minister if they can prove that the SAPS was negligent in investigating their case and that the investigation process and the aftermath caused them harm. In my case, the harm has been dire. I lost my livelihood. I am not earning anything. I lost the life that I had before. And I think that the victims of crime can attest to that. There will be students who are raped at university. You find that the woman leaves college before they finish, whilst the man stays. And the woman's life is changed forever because now their opportunity to earn has been cut short. So there are implications and the aftermath of traumatization, post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, mental health issues, and sometimes feeling like life is no more worthwhile, and are very dire. And some victims of gender-based violence, which is not properly documented, is that commit suicide because they see that their life is finished.
Andy, everything that you've said over the last while, and I can only imagine for other people who are listening who might have experienced something similar in terms of having been violated, it really cuts deep and hits deep. You put it in such clear words, the death of your former self. You express so much emotional anguish in the letter that you're sending to the executive, saying the noose is tightening around my neck with every passing second. And often in the pursuit of the practicality and, the architectural things around your case, we miss that this is something you live with every second of every day. I've spoken with you in other fora where you had this really incredible corporate career that was, ahead of you. You had a child by then, a whole life that you had planned, which was so cruelly and brutally taken away from you.
Iman, I think that the one other thing is that these crimes and this traumatization and this depression doesn't only affect the victim, it also affects the members of the family. It affects, as a breadwinner, it has affected how I am now not able to support my family, including my mother, who is 91 years old.
I guess the question
so
now...
the consequences are dire, they are real, and depression is serious, and it is debilitating. Sometimes you wonder, is it worth it to live?
Has that thought crossed your mind, and how have you overcome that urge, Andy, as you say, sometimes just thinking, things are so futile?
Yes, it's crossed my mind several times during the last 13 years, and I think now it is infiltrating my mind. But what has helped throughout these years, I've been going to therapy once a week, and my therapist, Pam Norton, has done a good job to put Humpty Dumpty together.
Oh, wow. So, Andy, here again, another setback this year in terms of the postponement with respect to your damages claim. What did that do when these delays continue? What is that? How does that affect you?
I think that right now there will be serious consequences because there are people affected by what is happening to me. And it may change and it may affect not only my life, but lives of family members that are dependent on me. So this year is crucial, and the situation is dire. The depression is real. The looming risk of suicide is real. That's why I decided to pen this letter, because I'm appealing to the humanity of the President, the Chief Justice, the Minister of Justice, the Deputy President in the Eastern Cape, the President Judge in the Eastern Cape, to please hear my plea and my cry. And this is the last cry. If things continue like this, I may be no more, or someone in the family may not be no more, because of the state of depression we are in.
Andy, it just feels so chilling to hear you say that. You have lost so much over the last many years in terms of, as you say, your role, your purpose, your career. You've had to raise your family and keep your family together in that context of your own brokenness. And here you are still today, you're still fighting, Andy. And, you know, it's so understandable what you say, that in a sense, I mean, how much more gas are you expected to have in the tank to be able to continue? And I really hope that these warnings and these signals that you're sending really do not fall on deaf ears. Have you heard back? It's been 2 days since this letter was sent out. Any overtures from any of the people that you've addressed in this appeal?
No, I haven't at the moment. And I think that I want to repeat the fact that many victims of gender-based violence who get into depression and PTSD end up killing themselves. Usually those suicide numbers are not reported. I think they should, because then they would be able to express and show the seriousness of this egregious and venomous crime to the victims of crime. And they must also send a warning to all the leaders, to the SAPS, to the investigators, to the courts, that prioritization of these cases and limiting the amount of time it takes could actually save people their lives, their ability to earn a living, and their ability to heal. But if a case, 13 years is a long time, it's a lifetime. And now I am in the years of being pensioned, and I was in the 40s when this happened. So a whole lifetime of earnings potential has been taken away from me. Can you imagine what happens to children and younger women who also get into this situation and they find that their whole lives are destroyed? I'm penning this case because my life is destroyed. But I don't want to see, as I'm seeing at the moment, my family's lives being destroyed by this case. I think one life is enough. Let's not have more lives destroyed. Let's not have lives of victims of gender-based violence, of women, of children who could be contributing to the development and of the country fall by the wayside because they were ignored. They were done a disfavor. They were done injustice by investigators, by the legal system, by the courts of South Africa.
And your words really, they hit hard and they reach very deeply. In closing, part of, your issue is what the President says from a policy and a public perspective on the issue of GBV and how that actually translates to experiences like yours and many hundreds of thousands of others in this country.
Yes, it does. And I think that the President started a good job in putting the gender-based violence summit, and I'm also looking at the National Strategic Plan for Development for dealing with gender-based violence. But all these things cannot be just talk and laws and pieces of paper. There are real people, not case numbers. There are real people who are suffering. There are real people whose lives are affected forever. There are real people whose lives and livelihood and their families changes forever because of gender-based violence. It's not just numbers, it's people. And I'm appealing to humanity of all decision makers who hear the plight of children, of women, of GBV, of women and all other gender-based violence victims, to hear the plight and hear their cry.
Yeah.
Because the noose can be so tight around the neck that you feel like you cannot breathe.
Andy Kawa, I just wish you, anything that anyone says doesn't have the ability, to undo the pain and suffering that you continue to face today. But I just wish you so much love and so much fortitude, Andy. And in speaking and in verbalizing your experience, I have no doubt that there are many, many women who are in a similar situation as you, or have experiences where their rights and their freedoms have been taken away and vandalized, can resonate with you and take some inspiration and some courage from you. Andy Kawa, thank you for your time and your courage this morning. I appreciate it.